What do people not know about the lives of a pastor?
And why is it so important for us to be intentional about our recovery time?
Let's find out.
I think that's important for you to figure out that God has uniquely gifted you.
I take it as a great honor and opportunity to be able to stand and teach. And certainly we have seen God work in that through the years.
Once you kind of relieve that pressure off of being a pastor, it allows you just to be a normal person who loves Jesus so that someone can see Jesus in you and vice versa.
And welcome back to another episode of the Bourne Raised podcast. My name is Jordan Bourne. I'm the worship pastor at Genesis Metro Church, and I am joined on my right by my brother, the greatest athlete, some say, in the history of Frisco ISD to suffer 6 concussions. Right. He's the world's greatest dog dad. He's a newlywed. He's the voice of the youth at Genesis Metro and Frisco and beyond. Titus Bourne, how we doing?
Dude, I'm fired up, man. That got me going.
Yeah?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Come on. And I'm joined on my left by someone who's a very special person. The funniest staff member at Genesis Metro, some say. It's debated, hotly debated.
Voted
the matriarch, Carrie, you know her by many hats. She's the women's pastor at Genesis Metro Church. Carrie Bourne, how are we doing?
Ready to go. It's been quite a week. We can't wait to get into it. Happy to be here today.
All right. And last but not least, the man who needs no introduction besides the one I'm giving him now, the visionary, the leader, the figurehead, and the founding pastor of Genesis Metro Church, Tim Bourne.
Hey guys, welcome to another great episode. We are going to be talking about some of the things that we're celebrating at our church, and we're going to be looking at what is behind the scenes for us in pastor life. Sometimes people want to know, like, what does a pastor do outside of working one day a week?
So we'll get into that. You'd be surprised how many times we have gotten that question.
Yeah.
So this last weekend, we had our Sisterhood Conference, which was incredible. And this has been going on for quite some time now. In fact, 20 years of Sisterhood Conferences. And so, Carrie, I guess we'll just get it started with you. You've been at every single one of these. You've led every single one of these events. And hopefully we can have some pictures that we can show as you talk about these. But what was it like for you to reflect on 20 years of this ministry and of this event and the differences between what would have been 2005 all the way to now?
Yeah.
Like, tell me some of your takeaways from that.
Well, every time I started to reflect on it in word form, I started crying. So I'll try to get through that today. I just, you're living this out and you don't realize time is piling up essentially. And suddenly you're at 20 years and, the first year we didn't have a t-shirt, a theme, nothing. So we had like a display of all of our shirts that kind of told the story through the years. And I will tell you the first year we had about 30 women and we tried to do everything the men had done. This is the first year that we started these. The men started it first in the spring and then the women followed in the fall. And so we tried to do everything the guys did, which was very Survivor-esque / Fear Factor. We ate things that were gross and we did really hard endurance challenges things. And it was just a few years of that before I realized that women don't really want to do that.
I see.
But however, I had it in my heart that we were not going to be like a normal, what I want to say, like women's ministry that you would normally feel what I grew up in. I wanted it to be challenging, different, not hokey. I wanted to be sure we took that factor out. It was important to me not to be that. So I didn't want to make crafts and things. I wanted to do things that were impactful. And so early on, our philosophy kind of became that we do things in the physical to represent what's happening in the spiritual. And that became something that drove what we did. Of course, we were always driving at life change, what was going to be impactful, what was going to be effective. But it's really important to us through the years. I know we started this early on, and this was really easy when we were at 30, 60, even 100, and it's gotten progressively more difficult. But we are big believers in creating groups of women, on the small group level, that are very intentional, meaning like there's people that have similar stories that maybe don't know each other, and this is going to springboard this great friendship that they need in each other's lives. Sometimes it's that somebody's walking through something and you know that this woman has what she needs to help her get through it. So we're just very, very intentional about that. It's been a game changer over the 20 years. We've heard multiple stories and levels of that. What do you think?
So I was just curious, do you have any examples, when it comes to those friendships that are formed that they would have never been formed outside of that?
Mm-hmm.
And B, would you say that women, as the women's pastor, naturally actually put themselves in situations that are like this in their normal lives?
No, I would say oftentimes before we get, so once we, first of all, no, women do not put themselves in that position, and they don't really like it at first. And I think we could probably hear from several that would say, oh, there was a year Carrie put me with people that I didn't know. And I was like, what is she doing? I sent her an email. I asked, could I be moved groups? And I asked you to trust me. And they normally on the flip side say, oh, you were right. I can see. Just last week, I had a conversation with someone that just before it started on Thursday said, I just met my co-leader yesterday and we have so much in common. And now I honestly didn't know they didn't know each other. But it's really cool to watch that play out. So no, I think women naturally want to be with who they know. I also think that it's very scary for women to show up to something that they don't know anyone or they know very few people. And then you're putting them, if you put them in a group of people they don't know, but so the people they do know are like over there across the way. And it's not always the case. It's not our goal to separate women from their standing friendships. However, if it feels like God is leading toward, hey, this person really needs this other person in their life, we will make that call. And oftentimes what we hear is the very ones that were very hesitant are oftentimes the most impacted by those pairings. And so that's always a favorite thing to me, is watching those things take place. And seeing God really work in friendships to springboard that so that they have positive female friends instead of oftentimes negative around them.
Yeah, that's almost the hidden way that God moves to these events, is the connections that are built. Because I think the headliner, rightfully so, is whatever my big breakthrough moment was. If I heard something in a message, or if I experienced something in a song, or if someone spoke into me in a moment that I really needed it. But the spiritual dividends that pay over 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the line are some of these relationships that are built. And I know that has held true across all of our different ministries, especially in our brotherhood. I can think of when some of our guys had their darkest moments, and the people who show up in the dead of night or answer the phone call when things are tough are the people who were in those same small groups that you're talking about. And so, man, that's awesome that you've had a front row seat to see these relationships get fostered. And
well, I think that's what makes us different from, let's say, other places that do these things, is that we believe deeply, and this is true from Fuse on Wednesday nights, even like weekly, but this is true for a lot of things, but we believe in the small group because that's where you're going to get to know people. And that's whether it's your serving team or a life group or an uprising or a sisterhood event, that there's a small group of people that you're connecting to, because otherwise you sort of just walk into things and walk out. I would say 2 years ago when we first opened the building, we had Sisterhood Conference at home 3 weeks later, and we were stretched to say the least because the same people that moved in, the same people that are planning this event. And we did not have small groups that year because we thought they would happen organically. And that was a mistake. It was a mistake. We will never not do small groups again, because what we learned is, there are people then, which is a huge heart of mine, that women don't walk in alone and walk out alone. That if they walk in alone, they're walking out with a group. They're walking out with at least one friend. And we missed a lot of people that way. So what makes GM different is we believe in the small group. It doesn't matter how big we get. We will always employ the tactic of making sure people have an opportunity to connect. It's very important. It's very important.
With 20 years of sisterhood, I think that's a pretty big, mark of success. Threshold that you get to hit. I don't think everybody gets to hit a 20-year anniversary of an event like this. So I guess I'm wondering, like, if you look at year 1 versus year 20, what has Carrie Bourne learned as a leader? Like, what's maybe one thing, or maybe the big difference, or maybe what's the difference in, like, what's the biggest struggle year 1 versus the biggest struggle year 20? How does it evolve?
Oh, man. First couple of years, I'm going to give you a funny one and a serious one, okay?
I love it.
Funny would be the second year, we had people bring bricks backpacks full of bricks from their house. And you had to wear a backpack of bricks all weekend. You could not put it down. They were inside. They were like, we said, you know how you have leftover bricks from your builder? It was near
their chair in the living room where they throw them at their husband.
And people brought their own or shared with their small group. Essentially, we made small group leaders like make sure everybody had one.
Okay.
I think we had 4.
It was a get your own bricks situation.
Bring your own bricks.
We're not providing
BYOB.
Because we didn't have a budget, essentially.
Well, also a lot of people were in starter homes.
Yeah, starter
they
homes.
actually
Everybody
would give you
had
those
bricks.
extra bricks in your
I know
garage.
exactly what you're talking
That's
about.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Back then, everybody could buy a house, huh?
Man, that ain't that
You get a house. You get a house. You get a house.
Ain't that the truth?
Fannie
Y'all
Mae
just
came
assumed
through.
everyone was going to have bricks because they owned a home.
Literally everybody.
That's that house privilege right there.
House privilege.
Anyway.
What was I doing in 2008? Why was I growing up?
I was too busy playing Wii bowling.
I've been buying a house.
I should have been locking in a
investing in
3%
my
interest
family's
rate.
future.
2.5.
Oh my
I've been
goodness.
buying the dip.
Okay. So that was interesting because also we were a lot younger as a church.
We were?
I mean, I was 30. So,
You're still young, Mom.
I had 0 injuries. I didn't have to worry about a hamstring or a shoulder. So in my mind, it never occurred to me at an event like that there might be some older women who this might hurt physically, like literally they can't operate when they get home. So anyway, with the bricks, it was we learned a little bit about making women do things that maybe are physically too challenging. So we've tried to find a happy medium in those things now or make them optional. Like I don't ever want to get in a pond ever. I just don't. So we're never going to do something like that. And you could think, Carrie, you could get out of your own comfort zone and get in the pond. I did it a few times. I don't really want to do it again. I got it checked.
What do you not like about the pond?
I don't like the things in the water. I don't like that I can't see. I don't like that I know there's snakes. I know there's turtles. I know there's just things. I don't know. There's gar, right? In the state of Texas, there's gar.
In a pond?
Okay, so for real, my serious answer to that question, Titus, is when we started Sisterhood Retreats 20 years ago, I did not know that I was, God had given me the gift of teaching. And it was absolutely brought about and developed in me upon those years at Sisterhood. And those first few years really cultivated that within me and drove it down in my heart that this was going to be part of what God was going to use me for. And I will tell you, I certainly have learned so much through the years. This man right here to my left, my husband, was the biggest cheerleader and biggest proponent of this and spoke it into me, I would say, and helped develop things and still does, like yesterday, all the grows and glows. And I ask him, like, tell me what can I do better? How can I do it better? And, I always welcome that because I want to be an impactful purveyor of the word. I don't want to, I take it as a great honor and opportunity to be able to stand and teach. And certainly we have seen God work in that through the years. So thank you, babe. Thank you, babe. That was my biggest personal takeaway.
That's pretty amazing.
Well, I think that we came out of a church culture that did not see women speaking and teaching as a thing.
Right.
So that's why I think it was a discovery process.
Yes.
I think that Romans 12 has some good insight on this. It says in verse 3, For by the grace given to me, I tell everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he should think. Instead, think sensibly, as God has distributed a measure of faith to each one. Now, as we have many parts in one body, and all the parts do not have the same function. And Paul is talking about the Christian body and how we all have different functions, just like in our normal body. We all have different functions in our spiritual body. He says, now as we have many parts in one body, and all the parts do not have the same function, in the same way, we are many in the body of Christ, but individual members as one to another. According to the grace given to you, we have different gifts. In prophecy, use it according to proportion of one's faith. In service, use it in service. In teaching, if teaching, do it in teaching. And I think that whenever you have that grace gift of teaching, it was a shame that we were in a culture that we were never going to unlock that. And so ever since that you started, I think that you were able to unlock so many opportunities for women at these events and in our church on Sundays that I myself wouldn't have been able to unlock, because your gift is different than my gift, and we all four here have different giftings. And so it's just great that God gives grace for people. And if you're new to the body of Christ, I think that's important for you to figure out that God has uniquely gifted you. I've met so many salespeople, and they think that they just like are really good at selling, when reality is they usually have this gift of hospitality, and they have that gift of speaking, and they're able to build relationships. And I've asked them, have you ever thought about like that God has gifted you that way? Mm-hmm. And they almost always look at me with a blank look in their eyes and like, what are you talking about? Yeah. It's like, man, your ability to connect with people is just amazing. And I think that all four of us, very uniquely gifted, and we have to operate in our gifts. Mm-hmm. And I think that unlocked something in you that allowed you to operate. And I think you would have said, I like singing.
Yes.
I like worship
Give
ministry.
me a microphone to sing.
Yeah.
That was
and
easy
so you
for
do
me.
have that gift as well, but I think that the speaking gift has really helped our church grow.
Yeah. I mean, it's had a huge impact. And now 20 years later, after that being unlocked, we see you get to teach the story of Esther over this weekend. And man, what is more apropos, like your story and Esther's story of like when you do embrace the opportunity, the gift, no matter the cost or the sacrifice that it takes, the impact it can have. So man, how powerful to see, I think, those things align. And then for women now to hear your personal story and then also Esther's story, and that's so much more sweatshirt that you have on. Yeah. I think it was like kind of the mantra for the weekend. And it's always cool. We'll get into this a little later in the episode, but in our events, as much as we plan, there are things that almost come to the surface or take hold within our events for men, for women, or students that kind of become the mantra. And we didn't even maybe necessarily plan for it to be the mantra. And so I think this weekend, so much more seemed to be the song and the statement that like God just has so much more for your life than you think. And I think just as someone who watched, I was behind the video camera capturing a bunch of content, but got to be a witness to everything that was going on. The message to the women of there is so much more for your life that God is wanting to do than you even realize. I thought was preached beautifully. So just wanted to give you some kudos.
Thank you.
On that. I think you could see the room shift when you get into topics like that, when you get into topics like self-worth and self-perception and, having them see in real time, like this is not it. Like this is not the place we're supposed to live as Christians, is just to be in the background and to be either apathetic or be silent. Like it's to step up and take a stand. And man, she preached the house down through Esther. So that was awesome.
Love it. Love it.
So I think that's kind of cool about what you shared of the so much more theming that was not the literal theme, but it was a motif for the weekend. In January of this year, that song was released by Red Rocks, and our team found it in February and immediately thought, this is a really good song. And I think we would have incredible moments of worship in this song. And we were kind of scheduling our new songs for the rest of the year roughly in that time. And I thought this would be perfect for a Sisterhood conference. And so we made that decision in February that we were going to align with intentionality our unveiling of this song, because we wanted to try to peak essentially at Sisterhood Conference. And so from February, we planned out a August introduction at Fuse. And what that allows us to do is get the youth group very familiar with the song, because at Genesis Metro, I'm proud to say our youth group are probably the most passionate demographic about worship that's in 100%. Our room. And, if you're listening out there and your kid is at church, don't let your kid out worship you. You should be the spiritual authority of your house, setting the tone, setting the example. Amen. That's just an aside.
That's pretty awesome.
But then that gave us the Fuse boost is what we call it, before we took it to Sundays in September. And then we rolled it through October, and now we're here in November. And it was everything that we hoped for and more, which plays in perfectly with the song. But I thought I saw so many people have moments while we were playing that song and singing together. And when we get to that bridge, that it's just money. If you've been waiting get ready. If you've ever been broken, if you've ever been weary, get ready for a miracle.
Well, I mean, the bridge is so impactful,
Yeah.
and it's a plea, right? It's a plea, but it's also a expectant posture almost before God, and it's either someone is singing this over you, God is saying it to you, or you're collectively looking at God saying, I am getting ready. But I love the first lines of the song that says, I'm looking up at this mountain in my way. It seems that all that you promised has been delayed. And we talked about the delay is development in your life. It was funny. I didn't realize the word play there, that they were in sync until yesterday morning. Cause I think I may have, taught on that on the first night of Thursday night.
Yep.
And the delay in our lives, just like Esther, you just think, gosh, how long is this going to take? I thought that you said this was going to happen, but I've just been waiting and waiting and waiting and nothing's happening. And really what's happening is God's developing you.
Yep.
And you aren't recognizing that needed to be done before he could fulfill whatever it was that he promised. And so I think that song, everybody has mountains in their life that they're looking at because they cannot possibly cross over that without some help. And it just speaks so much. It speaks so much.
Man, one of the coolest moments from the weekend, from the worship perspective, was the last night when we were doing this song right before our close for the evening. Everyone held up their Bible verse and they sang the bridge of this song.
Yep.
And it was the word that was going to be the miracle, and that this word was going to be, whether it was the getting ready process, whether this was going to represent the waiting or the praying or whatever it was, that this word is what unlocks the door, right? And so I hope we have a picture that we can show you guys. It was a very, very powerful moment. But let's give the backstory to our audience of what verses mean at GM in that context, because this is something that has now been a tradition across multiple events for years and years.
Yeah, well, let's go through the process. Like, how does it take place? What is it? When we talk about the verses in the air, how does that occur?
Yeah, so a long time ago, I don't know what year it started. It was early on.
Yeah, it was early. I don't remember the year either.
We always believe, obviously, at Genesis Metro, the mantra of our church is that we measure success by life change in response to God's word. And so we took it a step further and we said, on faith, what if we ripped pages, which at the time, that's a little bit of a stretch for some people because they feel like they're desecrating a Bible. Yeah. But we're not desecrating a Bible. This is the way actually scriptures are disseminated in third world countries where the gospel is illegal. They usually will take pages, rip them out, and hand them to one another. And that's how the word of God is passed around, page by page.
I love that.
So we were thinking, would God be able to meet someone where they are in their special set of circumstances coming to any of our events? And could we trust that God's word is a living, breathing document and is capable of answering people where they are? And so we, at the conclusion of every event, of every camp, what we do is we have a basket of scriptures, and sometimes we have them pick, sometimes we have the leaders give them and distribute them. Yeah. But we believe that God is going to have the right word for you no matter what your season of life is. And so that was the thought. Could we just on faith do this? And it has been something we've been doing for over a decade now for sure. And the great thing is that we've seen so many testimonies of it working. So I had a guy share with me and I'd say that we've tried to curate sometimes and focus these verses towards a topic. And one of the guys that shared his with me, I would say it was tough. It was like basically God's gonna smack you down. And so as I was as he sent, I was like, send it to me. And I knew what it was. I think it was Revelation chapter 3. Ooh, like I know you're not hot or cold, you're lukewarm. I'll spit you out of my mouth. And that's the one that was highlighted. So he was like, and it's exactly what I needed, And I was like,
amen.
Whoa.
Tough, but good.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
We need that.
Good. So whoever was then preparing those verses also played a part, right?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
so God wrote the word for us, and then we pick these verses out, our team does, and then those words are randomly distributed, and then we just trust that God's word works.
Yep.
And we have an awesome team that comes together every time. It's different people every time, but you talk about like how many verses would that take? And as the church has grown, now the amount of verses we need have grown. On Sunday, we asked women to come who didn't get to come to the conference, but to still interact with the conference on a Sunday for them to come up and get a verse. I think we ran out of verses.
Yeah, if I can say,
each service.
We ran out. So we had some left over from the conference, and we distributed those in 3 different baskets for 3 different services so that they wouldn't all run out in first. And so it became apparent quickly as soon as we said, hey, if you weren't there and you'd like to have a verse, come on down during this reflection song and get your verse. And it was a flood of people. It was women and men. It was students. It was kids.
Whole families.
And so, as a staff, we were noticing, and I noticed, and we're all running to where we know there were extras left over from Fuse Camp. What was cool was once I got to that spot in our offices, that there were even a couple of our interns from the summer who helped prepare those for Fuse Camp.
Wow.
Knew they were standing there during reflection, saw the verses running out, and knew there's extras. I know there are. I'm going to go find them.
Love it.
And so they were already on it and already replenishing them. And I believe we ran out again second service.
Yeah.
That's incredible presence of mind.
Incredible.
Yeah. So we have this huge team who takes out
Hold
all
on.
these verses.
Hold on. Let's just sit down in that for just a second.
Yeah.
For all you Gen Zers that are out there, take note. Take note, man. Be proactive. You don't have to wait for someone to ask you to do something that you can meet a need and you already know where the things are. So if you're out there in your first job and you want to know how to get noticed, be helpful, you know, solve problems.
Yes.
You have
so
something?
good.
Very. No, I was going to talk about just the process of it. So whole team comes out, rip the pages out, roll them up, tie them together, and then we stack them. And there's so many, and we do it, yes, at every single event that we have. And I think today we wanted to settle a little bit on like, what does a GM event look like, and what are some of the things that make our events different? I think verses is a huge part of something that we've just, like you said, done forever. It's a tradition that has really taken root, and people almost now are looking forward to. They're thinking about, they're contemplating, what verse am I going to get this year? And like, I know some people almost come in like knowing what they've been struggling with, knowing what they've been in, and like,
is it going to work?
Yeah. What's the verse going to be?
Hey, can I also say, I think that the people picking the verses actually start to look forward to, like they know that their hands are preparing God's word.
Definitely. That team. That team doing
that's a powerful feeling.
Well, and just one more time, one more thing in that is walking into a room where this summer for Fuse Camp, it was a group of students serving students who are they have their Bibles out and highlighters, and they're digging through. Now we've given them a general list of verses to look for in these extra Bibles that we buy so we can grab the pages from them. But to walk into a room, I would say, I know one day I walked in, there was like 20 teenagers, not just seniors, but like sophomores, juniors, seniors. And they're poring over their word to find a word to take out to be able to choose. And I think, come on. Just that alone, watching a bunch of teenagers dig for meaning and for God's hand in that, it's pretty special.
Well,
so
prayer goes into it.
Oh, yes.
We are praying over those verses. Those kids have to be a part of that team that day. We're praying over those verses for their fellow students when they do pick them out, that it speaks to them. And I just think things like that. I know I've heard stories where people got the same verse as somebody else, and they happen to go into the same exact thing. This weekend, my wife and her mother-in-law got the same exact verse.
They did?
And days apart. So how cool. I think there's so many stories throughout where it's just God is speaking directly to these people, to their circumstances, to their situations. And it always, I think, creates new stories every time that we do it.
Go ahead.
There's definitely a tradition aspect of it that it's really cool to see take on a life of its own as well. I wish I'd have brought my Bible today because in the front of it before the the pages start, I have between the faux cover and the first page, I have back to 2017.
Your list or
pages from
pages, yeah.
uprisings, from Fuse camps, from Fuse winter weekends, from Fuse winter conferences, from sisterhoods, all of these pages. And now I can go back through the years and see what God needed to teach me in those seasons, and then how that shaped where I was headed and where I've come from. And so that's really cool that if somebody does decide that they're going to be at GM for the long haul, or maybe they already have been, they can kind of have this history to look through of what God has been teaching them.
I have taken mine. I've written it in my Bible. So it'll say Sisterhood Retreat 2010, Sisterhood Retreat 2017. I have written that. But I know specifically you mentioned a couple of stories this weekend. I have two. I'm not going to mention names, but there was one woman who recently lost her mom, and she's just been grieving. You know, when you first lose a parent and you're an adult, it's very, very hard. If you've experienced that, you know. And she's been at multiple retreats, multiple. This is somebody who's been here a long time. And she was wondering, is God gonna speak to this? And her verse was out of Matthew somewhere that was Jesus speaking into a family who had lost someone. Wow. She couldn't believe it. Of course she could. Another woman who has had just a lot of trauma in her adult life, as well as her childhood, has spent her life trying to overcome that through a lot of failed relationships. She struggles with self-worth, and God is just working on her. She's a sponge. I would say she's just soaking up everything she can, every bit of hope. And I said yesterday, what was your verse? I'm curious to know. And she said it's out of 1 Samuel. And of course I know as soon as she sent me the picture, it was David's call. It was Samuel he was communicating, this is the one. And it said, you don't look at the outward appearance, because God looks at the heart. Don't look at how tiny he is and that he's a shepherd and that he doesn't fit what you think a king is, because man looks at the outward, but God looks at the heart. And she said, this is exactly what I needed. This describes me to a T, that I'm not worthy on the outside, but God makes me worthy because of what he's done inside me. And I happened to speak a little bit on David yesterday. And so I told her, I said, this is David's call, and she didn't know that. And I said, you got to dive in, but these are just two, there's just two. And of course I've heard more, but it's just amazing to watch every single time that it does work. Sure does. He speaks.
One story that was somewhat personal to me was that there's a family I've been getting to know over the last couple months after I've been teaching my first ever guitar lessons. Someone reached out to me on social media and asked if I did lessons. And I said, I don't, but I am happy to use this as a guinea pig trial run if you're cool with that too. And so I've been getting to know this family, and they're super kind. They invited me out to a choir concert for
so sweet for your student.
For the student, yeah. And the father started telling me some backstory of their family while we were waiting for it to begin. That he grew up in church, but it kind of left some scars, and the wife did not grow up in church, but they had gone through some difficult things, and they knew they needed to find some answers. And so they started trying Genesis Metro with this new sermon series. I think they started kind of being more consistent. They had been on the outside looking in before that. But she was at this Sisterhood Conference, and she got saved this weekend. Yeah. And, amazing. It's like God just gave me a front row seat over the last couple of months to get to know this family, that now both of them are going to have that foundation for their two kids that they're raising. And, that was just amazing.
I would say that's my favorite part of what we get to do is watching people go from A to B, really watching that progression. And that could be someone who is a believer, but they find God on a deeper level, or something is just unlocked in them. Or it could be someone who's never had a true encounter with Jesus, finally having that and getting to be a part of that. It's, it's maybe my favorite thing.
I think that's what ministry is, right?
Yeah. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah, for sure.
Always.
So good.
Well, man, what incredible event. And, just a great thing, I think, in our church with God's word being at the center and that being clear in our traditions, being clear in how we approach the sermons for events like this. But man, how do you, after we do the whole event and that feeling of that good exhaustion, right? Like you get to the end of it, everything worked. We saw God move. We get these stories we get to tell now. Man, what's the after? What is that?
You turn the page to the next thing.
The next thing.
Let's go.
The next thing. And I think that's something we want to hit on today is, I think going back to the beginning of, man, we only work on Sundays, we'll only work on Wednesdays. And I found that everyone who like tells that joke thinks that they're telling us for the first time.
Man, they love it.
And it's like, hey dog, like you get in line. Like everybody said this joke to you at one point if you are in ministry. But there is always something on the horizon. I know that just thinking about sisterhood and like that ending, we have Christmas coming up. We have our men's conference coming up in February. We have, for the student side, we have a student event next week, and then we're planning for one of our events in January. And so there are always things.
Young adult worship night that same week as
Communion
well.
is coming up too.
So many things are coming up next. And so we have to be able to focus on the next thing. We can't get so caught up in the, this was great that we, get to just sit there for a long time. Now it's almost the next day, right? We have to turn it around and now focus on something else. So how within that, because that sounds, I think on the surface, it's exhausting, but how do you think we've all had to adapt in terms of maximizing that time of either recovering, relaxation, or recouping? Because I think we all know the life lesson that we can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Right. And as pastors, that's one of the biggest reasons for burnout is that these pastors are pouring out from empty cups. They have not done the time to recover. They spend the time with the family to have a foundation to go out and be the light of the world and live in their gifting. And so how do we do that? And what's the importance of having that time in between events?
Yeah. So I would say a lot of things to that. Kind of break it down a little bit. How you receive refreshment, to some degree or another, you're responsible for that. So it's not that, you have to have a strategy, and it's a little bit catered to your personality type.
Very.
Because like our audience out here, anyone that is married or works in an office environment with different personalities, you're going to realize that what gets you excited is not what gets other people excited. And so you have to know what refreshes your soul. Sometimes that's some withdrawal for a certain amount of time. Sometimes that's more connection. I know I thrive personally off of connection with my team. I like to eat lunch with my team, hang out in the office with my team, hang out of the office with my team. And so I think everyone has to know kind of what they're aiming at there. And then I think on the tackling the pastoring side, I think that what most people would not know is that at every level of church, it takes more to do the same thing. Ooh. And so you if you have a church of 75 people, it doesn't take a whole lot to do that. There's not like a level of complexity. There's not multiple instrumentalists usually. You're singing maybe out of a hymn book. So everybody's got these songs memorized for the last 70 years. And then like if you go up different levels of church, like you got to plan. A good way for someone to think about this if they're sitting at home. When's the last time you planned a 1,500 person event? And most people will only have done that maybe one time at their wedding or something like that if they had a giant wedding.
Huge wedding.
So other than that, most people have never planned a 1,500 person event. And so when you think about what it takes to pull that off on a regular basis, and then you have no overhead, you have to capitalize on volunteers giving their time to pull off the 1,500 person event. So just imagine in your HOA that if you ask for 150 to 200 volunteers to come out and help you with a 1,500 person event this coming Saturday, just imagine how many people would show up to help. And if you get 10, you would have knocked it out of the park.
Hey, taking a break from the show real quick. If you want to help support us and this endeavor, this journey that we've set out on, there is a link in the description that you can click on, and you'll have to select the fund podcast sponsorship, and that'll go into making all of this possible. It is by no means necessary, but we would greatly appreciate it. If you would like to set up a regular sponsorship and a business inquiry, you can email us at bornandraisedpod@gmail.com. Thanks so much. Back to the show.
You know, what's funny is I slept 10 hours the night after, like that night. I think I looked at my clock. It was like 11:08 Saturday when I woke up, like first stir. I was like, man, I'm in college again. But that is, I need sleep. I need sleep whenever I get done with that. But then the next morning, I was speaking at church. But just last night, I get a text from some of the She staff, and it's like, okay, we need to get started on communion. We already talked about this, but how exactly are we pulling this off? Here's send your creative ideas. And it's like, you have to turn your mind to like, I got to transition over to what's coming next, because it will be here in just a few weeks. And it's true that the grind doesn't stop, because it does take weeks to plan these things and set them up and create or build or make whatever contraption is going to be needed, rent the things that you need to rent, like yada, yada, yada. As you're saying, these are multiple 100 people events. And so you're trying to encapsulate and grab that like magic sauce, which I'd like for you to speak to. Like, what is that? How do you, we can plan events, but they could just be meh.
How does it become creative?
But how does it become, like, there's this GM creativity, I would say, that's born, pun intended, from this brilliant creative mind right over here, and is like sprinkled through this generation over here on my right, because there's always going to be a creative element. Also, Tim doesn't like to repeat any ideas. He's like, oh, no, I can't repeat ideas. We have to keep them fresh. But there's always this magic sauce on a GM event, and that's really born out of your mind, your born mind. So tell us a little bit about that.
I'm sure that we can all express what a brainstorm looks like, but you start from what is it that you're wanting to convey. So this we've already got our Christmas theme coming in, and that is the King is coming. So in my mind, I think there's a lot of discussion right now about Israel and about what's going on over there and how does that play in with other timetables. And so it's a good way to present some material that we can look at prophetically, how Jesus was predicted to come to Jerusalem, or he was predicted to be born in Bethlehem, or he was predicted to be born of a virgin. When we look at those things, that's exciting. And then for communion, let's just say, what is our creativity that we're cooking up there? We always want to try to find a way. Paul said, and Jesus said, so Paul commented on what Jesus said. So at the Last Supper, Jesus said, "This do in remembrance of me." And so Paul said, when you observe communion, as long as you do it in remembrance of him. And so it's like it's an homage. It's a celebration. We remember that Jesus gave his life. So then you want your church to be able to participate together. Well, we have a church that's 3 services, so they'll never be in the same place at the same time. So what would be a way that you could get everyone to participate in remembering Jesus? And so then we start throwing out ideas of something creative, and imagine a mosaic of sorts, if you will, that could be constructed and put together over a period of 3 services. And that would have messaging that would be very clear about who Jesus is and how we remember him. And then we're turning the page from literally Thanksgiving to Christmas. And so when we started thinking the King is coming, whenever we remember who Jesus was, he came and it was the King of Kings came in the form of a baby in Bethlehem. But when he comes again, right, instead of being the lion or the lamb that he came the first time, he's going to be the lion. And so I wanted us to start thinking about, as we celebrate him, sometimes I think Christmas takes on like a different vibe to people. And I don't want to be like overly zealous, and kick all the Christmas tradition out. But I do think sometimes Jesus as the baby isn't celebrated as the king.
Oh, that's good.
And I think that,
true.
I think his divinity suffered its ultimate humiliation in the manger. And that show of God's love to us in becoming a man is like his greatest kind of display of himself, saying, I'm willing to take on whatever form is necessary to save you.
In the most ordinary way.
Oh,
in the most
common
ordinary
way.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
And to I guess give my answer to what you posed earlier, the way that you are able to turn the page after a big event like this is that to an extent, it's kind of a 24/7 thing.
Yeah.
And so we say something that is known as always be collecting. And so as things come up, just capture it. And then you can kind of work on all these things at the same time. You always have your primary focus. Like the last couple of weeks, sisterhood's been my primary focus. But just to give you some garden variety examples, in the last week, The King is Coming was mentioned as the communion series title. And so I threw out there, hey, you know what? There's actually a song right now that we could be doing alongside that series that has the same exact title that was done by Red Rocks, who was just at our church. And wouldn't that be a great opportunity? Okay, so that plan's done. Now we're executing that. During service, as we are celebrating all the goodness of sisterhood, Matt and I are also working on the plan for our young adult worship night that's coming up because we had some time. Thursday, while I was getting ready for night one of conference, a Christmas song came on my auto playlist that I thought, hey, that might be cool to do at Christmas this year. So I just texted our group, and then I'll think about it later, but I captured it. And then last Sunday, I had just a random opportunity where I had the house to myself. Kennedy was at work, and Dakota was with her other set of grandparents. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to have football on and I'm going to be by myself. Well, let's just have this as an opportunity. I threw it out to our lead team who does our brotherhood retreat, because I know that's coming up. We'll have some time to hang, reconnect with those guys, get ready for this year. So just over the course of a week, when you find these little pockets, you just do what you can. And then that way it's not like, okay, sisterhood's done, we turn the page, and now we have no prep for the next thing.
Blank slate.
There's already some baseline because none of us are just turning our brains off whenever we're not focusing on the one main thing. It's a constant looking at all the variables that are out there, and then managing that time as best we can.
What's funny is I don't know if it's because I feel like, I don't know. It's been put into both of your DNAs for sure. Because in our house, when y'all were young, even if you don't remember this, I don't know if you do, but we had church in our house for a long time. And meaning like, we had life groups, of course, like we've talked about. Our, groups was a springboard for having a collection, enough of adults to meet on a Sunday. But even after that, we would have any kind of meeting or Bible study or life group we were going to have in our home, because that's really all we had. And furthermore, once we finally got in the building, the thing is, you guys were raised in a home where we were always talking about plans and what we were going to do next, and just everything you've just described. We lived that out in front of you, not realizing you might be picking up on some of the habits that we had on working. And I could remember, like managing you guys as younger kids and your little fights and stuff, how brothers fight. I'm cooking dinner. There's a baby crawling around. I have my computer up on the bar that has a recipe on one tab and PCO on the next tab while I'm managing a schedule and managing PCO. Kids and cooking. PCO is our information database, essentially our scheduling process.
Everything.
But it's just all of those things. And, that's certainly how our brains have functioned for years. So we don't necessarily turn it off when we leave the office. In fact, I would say that Tim and I might work more at home than we do at the office. We do a lot of work at home. And so it's just constant, like you said, 24/7.
PT, did you have something?
Yeah, I had something. The beauty of when we bring it home is that I think our children got to watch.
They got to see it, be a part of it.
One time we were doing these rafts that we were going to build that we had to float across, and the guys had to build their own. So we gave them the rudimentary materials of like 2 50-gallon drums and a piece of wood and some straps. And they had to build their own raft and then cross. We called it crossing the Delaware.
This is for what?
For Uprising.
And
for our men's conference.
Yes. And Jordan was probably, 7th grade. And he was like, Dad, can I go with you? And I was looking at Carrie, and it was cold. It was cold outside. And I was like, yeah, I think you should. And so we went down to the pond, and I'm sure the HOA hopefully wasn't watching. And we started constructing this thing, and Jordan got out there on this platform, and I know he went in the water, and he was like looking at me with the big eyes. And he's like, "Daddy, it's cold." So I was like,
Yeah.
"It's
cold, Daddy.
I know.
It's cold.
But it's memory making inside of the creativity that allows your family to kind of coalesce around what does it take to move the needle, and what does it take to build a memorable moment where we tie these creative functions to someone's practical Christianity. And I think that's what we're doing at Genesis Metro.
Yeah, for sure.
I just think we speak about all of this as if it's very normal. And I think if I was an outside listener right now, I would say that sounds like a lot.
Sure.
Sounds how can you always be thinking about this, and this, and this? I just think that we talk like this is all like normal and just how it is with everybody. But I would say most jobs out there probably aren't like this. 9 to 5, you don't bring that home, right? Typically. Yeah. Again, I wouldn't know. I haven't worked in that. But I think that we have treated it as normal, but I think to a lot of people out there, this wouldn't be what they expected to hear of what we do. And I think that with all of us, we have our hands in so many different ministries that, and all of our staff does. We are all involved in so many different things, and we're always trying to do something within these ministries. So it never really stops. But I think to go back to like how to have that shift, I think as much intentionality and creativity and effort we put into the events and put into the balance and bringing the work home and finding time, I think something that I've had to learn is like you have to put as much intentionality and effort into the recovery process.
Sure.
Because you can't be your best self if you aren't recovered properly. And like you said, it's different for everybody, but I know that creative sessions, it's hard to be creative and be tired.
Oh, that's so true.
It's hard to be creative and be exhausted. It's hard to be creative and be burnt out. And so as much effort as you put into those things, you need to put into these, it's literally these like tiny pockets of, man, I have nothing going on tonight. Okay. And I think that something I've had to learn is like, you don't accidentally become recovered.
That's true.
You don't fall into, I'm better, I'm good. That has to happen as a result of you finding out what does that for you. And I think that's something that I've had to learn is I thought that if I just did nothing, turn my brain off, shut down, scroll, watch YouTube, watch a movie, whatever, that would make me feel
refreshed,
better, ready for the next thing. And I wake up the next day and I'm like, man, my brain is still foggy. I feel still like just worn out from how much we've been doing. And so I've had to learn what that process is for me and then find, okay, I have nothing going on tonight. I'm going to spend time with a friend. I'm going to go make a memory with my wife. I'm going to, go do something physically active, whatever that thing is for me. But it has to be something out of the norm. And that's just my process. But I've had to learn that doesn't happen on accident. And so I think with all of these different things, as much as you are thinking about the next thing, and yes, we're taking this little time here and time there to set the foundation for whatever's coming next. There is that part of it that you have to find that time because again, if you're trying to pour into people, especially, and you haven't, like as pastors, like not just the life and the craziness of the schedule, but also the responsibility that we have is to pour into people. And so if we don't have the effort put into having the energy, the spiritual, I guess, personal connection we're pouring into with God, if we don't have that going on, well, then when the time comes to pour in, to answer the call, to do whatever it needs to do, well, if we haven't been doing our due diligence within our recovery time, well, then maybe we aren't ready for those moments. So not only is it recovering to keep the good work and put it in, making the events happen and pulling those off, but it's also in order for us to be the leaders that we need to be, that we're called to be. So I think there's just things like that as people wouldn't always factor in when they hear the life of a pastor.
Yeah. I think it's almost backwards for us, where you mentioned it, for most people's work lives, what's normal is work is at work and you come home and there's a clear distinction there. So for that person to wrap their mind around this whole week, all you're thinking about is what you're working on. Mm-hmm. That would have to be an intentional decision to activate that.
Yes.
Whereas we live in close to that place, so we have to make the active decision to turn that off.
Yes.
And to unplug when it is necessary and when it is healthy. And so I think that's what I found is my experience and the main difference there.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, I would say that for me, I think that's so good, Titus, because I certainly used to, I'm an extrovert by nature. And I think there were years that I would just keep going. And I used to sacrifice recovery time to make sure I wasn't missing anyone. I would just like make myself available constant. And through the years, what I learned is you come to the end of yourself. You can't keep that pace up. And those break nights or whatever, it is just break nights. It's just an evening. You might have a morning. You might have an afternoon.
Yeah. It's small pockets of time.
Yeah. But also it is intentional. So I've learned I need to laugh. That's a good recovery. Like be around people that make me laugh. Tim always makes me laugh. Yeah. Tim's very funny.
Lucky you.
And but I do enjoy that. And I also love. I have to work out. I need to stretch. I need to do something. I went this morning to the gym and I felt so good after I went.
Nice.
Even though I hadn't been in days because I was grinding and getting up super early just to be ready and make sure that I was, of course, in my word and spiritually ready and making sure I was saying exactly what God wanted, but just, making the event run. And so it's working out for me. It's laughing. And of course, at this time of year, while conference was going on, I said to Silas, who is the only Bourne child that still lives in this house, on Monday last week, I said, listen, you have 5 days to get all my Christmas boxes down out of the attic. Now, I normally don't even ask them for help because I can get them myself. I pride myself on being able to get my own Christmas boxes down because it's a lot. But I've reached the age where it hurts my back. All right. It hurts my back. I realized it last year. So I said, Silas, I need help.
And Tim's not helping.
Tim came to helping. His back went out years ago. I'm not going to say it. So he recruited he said, can I get some help from the brothers? So Jordan said he would help him. Jordan recruited some of the band. And by the time I got home from conference, late Friday night, they were all down and in my garage waiting for me. So I've started that immediately.
So that's your thing. So the first thing after preaching Sisterhood Sunday, you get home.
Look at her already. Look at this. We're talking about what refreshes you. And look how she literally just filled with energy at the bringing up of this topic.
So excited.
So did you
I
get
almost
into
wore
it?
Christmas
Did you
sweatshirt.
get into it last night?
Well, I took all the fall down. It's all boxed up. I did start Christmas coming in. Yes, one little bit at a time, trying to plan my tree right now. I've been looking at it in its bare form. Like, what's it going to be this year? I don't know. I mean, I just got to decide. I got to get the house done because the church will be done the week of Thanksgiving, of course.
I happened to marry a woman that November 1st. We spent the entire day decorating our 750 square foot apartment. And you can fit more than you think.
More than you think.
Yeah. More than you should? Is that what you were trying to say?
I said more than you think.
More than you think. Emma, your sweet, precious wife on Friday night after we were finishing up, I know it was yesterday afternoon after the third sermon, she said, guess what? It's Christmas time.
Yeah.
She knows.
She knows. Tying those two segments together, I think that one of the things you have to think about is like who you're married to, right? Because we do all this as a family, and to a certain degree, you're coming up on a very important birthday.
Sure.
And you're going to be
25
years old, a quarter of a century on the planet.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday. Sweet Jobo.
And so we in this room have done ministry on some form or fashion for 20 years together. You've watched it or you've participated, but your wives have been introduced to this life in the last several years. So it's not only how does it work for you personally, it also has to work for your person that you're married to. And so then like, are they so aware that they can see when you need something?
Yeah.
And so it starts to become a little bit of a ping pong, right? Yeah. It's like you can't be so ministry focused that you don't address your marriage concerns.
Of course.
But your spouse can't be so marriage focused that they don't see that we have to give something in some forms or fashion to the ministry. And so therein lies, I think, a little bit of interesting behind the scenes is that our lives are all intertwined in what we do in our ministry. And then we have to make sure that we are the authentic thing at home in our marriage. Yeah. Because imagine if you were married to someone who on the platform was this type of person, and then at home they were a different type of person, then I think a lot of like resentment could build up over time. Even in pastors' kids are known for this mentality, you know, because I think sometimes they didn't see the same person at home. Now, again, we can go into church culture and all that kind of stuff, but you know, I feel like that's one of the things that excites me and makes me somewhat most proud is that on some level, you guys had to have seen something that was affirming and that God spoke to you in it, that we were in a culture that you wanted to contribute to for the rest of your lives. And so that's a reward in and of itself, I think, for a lot of the labor that went into how we manage and try to, you know, hold the ship together sometimes. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I think the culture of authenticity at GM makes it really easy to be the same person at home as you are as the pastor. I think that there's a terrible thought out there that you have to be a perfect person all the time as a pastor. And I think if you try to live that and be that, you will disappoint yourself and others.
Just building the tower up higher.
Yeah, just so that you can topple. But I think that, not that we are doing bad things, but you can be just a regular person. And as someone who's walking around on Sunday mornings and whatever, like there's no need to have a front or some kind of like character that you're going into when you're talking to people out in the commons or meeting with a student or whatever it is. And I think that once you kind of relieve that pressure off of being a pastor, it allows you just to be a normal person who loves Jesus so that someone can see Jesus in you and vice versa. And so then going home, I don't have to be a different person because guess what? I'm the same guy. And so I think, yeah, that's a very, very great way of saying it. We got to watch that. And so why would I not want to be a part of it? But then within marriage, I mean, I'm 3-4 months in now.
It's not going to make it any
My
less
wife
true.
has entered into ministry with me. All right.
Yes.
Right. She joined you. You were already doing it. Yeah.
And she, I think, learned maybe some of my flaws being the work all the time. Don't turn it off. As a single person, by the way, beforehand, I could, and there was no problems. I mean, sure, like sometimes my friends would be like, dude, like you don't hang out or whatever. And I'm like, I'll hang out at some point, then we go hang out at some point. But like now it's like, if I'm going home.
There's like a marriage to maintain.
Yeah, you got to be on at home.
There's a dog, which is like a child.
You got to invest in that dog.
You take a dog on a walk. When he's got to get outside.
That is something new where you have to, now it's like you have to balance.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
There's no like choice anymore.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like you just can't work tonight.
Right.
Oh.
Right. I'm good. I can't do any of that.
Shoot. Okay. Well, I got to figure that out.
Oh, this makes me so happy. There were so many nights of my first year,
Ooh, I see where this is going.
of marriage, where
He would give you crap.
Titus, well, not that. It's like he was dumbfounded. Like,
What is wrong?
What?
Why can't you hang
Are
out?
you being serious right now?
What do you
Like,
mean
are
just
you?
hang
I don't
out?
understand,
Dude, it is 1 a.m. We're getting the boys together.
Yeah, get over
Yeah.
it.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
You're awake.
Yeah.
God.
So
It just feels full circle.
So Emma,
us, figuring that out. Me having to be more intentional about balancing all of that. But she's done a great job of like learning when I am, let's say, just worn out or whatever. She always just, like wants to find a way to get me back to full form. So, hey, do you need to hang out with a friend? Like, should I call up X person? Let's do something. Or like, hey, let's go for a drive, whatever it is. And so, and then me the same way with her, she works from home. So her being home all day, sometimes it takes, when I get home, I want to just sit on the couch. Right. But
she's been sitting on the couch working.
If I am being the husband I need to be, well, then I'm like, hey, let's go out for a drive. Let's go to dinner. Let's do something outside the house, even though it's not necessarily what I
your thing
would naturally do. And so knowing your spouse is knowing that part of the ministry side is that, yes, I think they both, speaking about ours, yours obviously has longer experience, but there's a learning curve that comes with it. And you can't expect them, I think, to fully understand just how like the differences in how our lives are.
Yeah.
But I think what's awesome about Emma and I'd say Kennedy is that they have this deep appreciation for what we do. And I think a great moment as just like a perfect bow at Sisterhood is that both of our wives are pretty, let's say, on the shyer side.
Introverted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not timid, but shy.
A lot like Carrie.
I would not call them extroverts.
No,
They're not extroverts. No.
Not extroverts. But both strong-willed people in their own way.
Yeah.
Oh.
They can hold their own with you guys.
There's a strong will.
That's right, Kennedy. You get them.
So I was watching.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Build a tight rope. Is there a net?
Yeah, where are you going right now?
So it's actually a really like sentimental
That's a good point.
story.
I'm ready for it.
Go ahead.
At the last night of Sisterhood, when people came out with the verses and then back to their chairs, and you invited everyone down for the last song.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? Well, they were standing in the back, and I watched them. Like, I think Kennedy said to Emma, like, should we go down there? Let's go down there. And I was like, let's do it. And they were like one of the first ones to walk down together.
The very first.
They were the first. I was on the stage.
And they the first ones to come down together and worship
let it
together.
out.
I think that was just an awesome moment. Of
It
like,
was awesome.
This is why you choose the right people. Also for our wives to do that together, I think is something I didn't even think about as like a awesome moment. But man, how cool. And that just shows exactly, I think, the fruit of our intentionality is that, yes, there is that fear. Like, will the pastor's wife or even the kids, I'm sure for y'all, like, understand this the same way, have the same passion, and then you get into moments like that and you're like, man, that's what it looks like. That's what it should look like. If you are being the same man you are at the church as you are at home. So
Yeah. I think I would just add to that. It's really special that they both are involved in this event to the extent that they are, because then it feels like we're doing it together, which I think really smooths out a lot of what otherwise would be figuring out of the work-life balance, right? Yeah. So for Mom, you to invite them to be a part of that team to help run some things behind the scenes and just make sure everything goes smoothly. It's a team effort. And I will say, on your horizon, sometime after your 4 months, eventually when kids get added into the equation, there's a whole new variable of balancing and managing that. And so, one day I will sleep until 11 after Sisterhood retreat. But I was up at the bright early time of 7:30, hanging out with little Dakota, and she's the best. But
I will wrap us up.
But do you have a dog sleeping in your bed?
No, not in the bed.
No.
But just to add on to that in a serious way, it is so special to get to do this as a family, and for that to take on a life of its own beyond just this room.
Yeah.
And now that's the family that I've started with Kennedy at home. That's something that's really special. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
One of the things I shared, just to wrap this up, is the first night as we were coming into the first night of the 20th year, essentially, of Sisterhood, was I have in many ways, as the Sisterhood has grown, I've grown up as an adult, and there were years I left and I was nursing, and, you're trying to make sure there's enough for the baby because Tim's going to be feeding the baby all weekend. And there were years that you're thinking, do they have their shin guards for practice? Is Tim going to remember all the things? Because, Tim is not Mr. Mom. That was not his skill set.
You were Mr. Mom?
So you're leaving that. And then years that you come home and I was going straight to a game or straight to y'all's tournaments. And we would be up at the crack of dawn the next morning because you had a thing and we're all going to it. And,
I had to think, how much can I yell at this team today and still preach tomorrow?
Yeah.
Hey, don't worry. He got him in.
So in all the years,
shoot the ball, Titus.
I am back.
Titus, shoot
the
ball.
Every time.
Would you just shoot it? I remember it.
hey, just because he's open doesn't mean you need to pass it to him.
That was ingrained.
There's a reason why he's
dude.
open. They're leaving him open on purpose.
You're just trying to make the right basketball play.
I was a great passer, okay? I was, but
You're facilitating.
my teammates were not great scorers.
Yeah, he'd throw the ball, go through a guy's hands, hit him in the face. I was like, that's what happens.
Yep.
You used to facilitate offense. Now you facilitate life change, baby.
Coach Tim.
Ooh, write that down.
Oh boy. So anyway, yeah,
We're gonna
20
be
years
into
of
that
sisterhood, being able to watch my kids. I said, if you say yes to God, I know for me in my life what it's meant. As I got up there, I was kind of processing the back. I'm sitting back there worshiping, praying, asking God to move in the room, and I'm watching this play out. And I've got a son on drums. I've got a son leading worship. I've got a son on camera who's also helped create all the videos that we were using for the weekend. And I was incredibly grateful as a mom. I don't normally get up there and gush over my kids because we try not to indulge ourselves those things. But I just said, when you say yes to God, he can do things beyond what you can imagine. It is true. And the word says it, but I'm living proof. You could be led by your own kids one day. And then the last night, Titus, to bring that up, when those two walked forward, Emma and Kennedy, your wonderful wives, our wonderful daughters that we love, they led out in getting down there to lead the room in celebration. Oh, it was a full circle moment. Yeah. Good stuff.
I think that if we were trying to wrap this up, if you're keeping track at home, this is the fourth wrap.
If I could just put a bow on it.
Yeah. If I can just put a bow on all of this, just go back to the
just
beginning.
to bring this to the finality. This weekend, you guys were talking about Esther. Mm-hmm. And Esther, in many ways, had to say no to a lot of things in order to say yes to what God had called her to.
Yeah.
And in our lives, I think what people would be interested in knowing and to see us produce people that are so passionate about ministry, and all of them had to quit doing some other things in order to do this, is that there is a sacrifice that's always required. And a lot of times, especially in our Frisco culture, we think, man, I'm gonna cheat my kid out of an opportunity if I don't have them in 5 different activities. And that is such a false way of thinking. And I think that if you just prioritize and just think of it like a pyramid, if God is on top and then everything else flows down, naturally you'll have to deselect some of those boxes in order to make sure that Christ is the priority. Yep. But every single family that we have seen that chooses to sacrifice for God and lives authentically in community, their children naturally gravitate to making that a priority in their lives. And so it actually becomes a safeguard against a lot of the pitfalls that would otherwise occur. So it's really, what are you going to say yes to? What are you going to say no to? And because Esther was willing to risk everything and say no to the fear, the doubt of, or the position that she was powerless in, she said no to those feelings. She said yes to the commitment of God.
That's right.
And for such a time as this, he put her in the right place. And then look, everyone was saved as a result. If we wouldn't have said no to all of those other things that were competing for our family, even what was best for our financial position in life, we said no to a lot of things so that we could say yes to this one thing. But now that's generated all of these opportunities for us. And so when you're thinking about it out there in your own life, I would say, if you're going to chase after God and expect that you get to keep everything, you get to keep all of your emotions, you get to keep all of your personality traits, you get to keep all of your resources, and you get to then just add God to that equation, I think you'll be very disappointed. Whenever it comes to God, when you say yes to God, it says that you deny yourself and you take up your cross and you follow after him. So it's a self-denial. And that's what we got to get back to in our Christianity. That's exactly what Esther displayed in the Old Testament. And that's exactly what we try to model as the Bourne family. So this week, you think about that. If you're picking up that cross, what are you putting down that's going to allow your hands to become free to carry the cross for Christ?
Amen. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Bourne and Raised podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and comment and like on this video. That helps us out so much. If you're listening on podcast platforms, leave a 5-star review, and we'll see you in the next one.